The graph shows the journey of a hot air balloon. At what height above the ground was the balloon after 10 minutes? So if we look, we have the time of journey on the bottom. So what we can do is find 10 minutes and then draw a line straight up so that it's meeting the line on our graph. Then if we draw a line to the left, we can see that the height above ground was 400 meters. Now, after how many minutes of the journey did the balloon begin to go down? If the balloon is going down, then the height above ground will be decreasing. And it asks when it began to go down, so that will be when it starts to decrease. So what we can do is draw a line down from when it starts to decrease, and we can see that that was on 45 minutes. Match pairs of numbers that have a difference of 1000. One has been done for you. So they've shown us that 4000 and 5000 have a difference of 1000, and that's because 5000 minus 4000 is 1000. Now in the numbers that we've been given, we have commas, and remember the comma in a number separates the thousands digit from the hundreds digit. So 67,700 is 1,000 more than 66,700. So these numbers have a difference of 1,000, because if we ignore our hundreds, tens and ones digits, 67 is one more than 66. We can also match 76,700 and 77,700. Because if we ignore our hundreds, tens and ones, 77 is one more than 76. So that means our other pair are 66,600 and 67,600. Remember, the hundreds, tens and ones digits will be the same in both numbers if the difference is 1000. Here is a table of temperatures at dawn on the same day. What is the difference in temperature between London and Paris? So we can see that the temperature in London was -4 and the temperature in Paris was +6. So what is the difference between -4 and +6? Well, on a number line, if we start at -4, adding 4 will take us to 0 because -4 plus 4 is 0, and then we need to add 6 to get to 6. So altogether, because we need to add 4 and add 6, we have a difference of 10, because 4 plus 6 is 10, so the difference is 10 degrees. Now when you're finding the difference between a negative number and a positive number, what you can do is ignore the negative and positive signs and just add the numbers. 4 plus 6 is 10, so the difference is 10. At noon, the temperature in New York has risen by 5 degrees. What is the temperature in New York at noon? So New York, we can see, is at -9 degrees. And if it's risen by 5 degrees, we need to work out -9 plus 5. That gives us -4. Notice the answer is not -14, because -4 is a warmer temperature, so a temperature that's risen compared to -9. And to see why that is, let's look at a number line. If we start at -9, then increasing or rising by 5 will mean we're going 5 jumps to the right, and that takes us to -4. If the temperature had fallen, we would be going to the left, but because the temperature is rising on a number line, we're going to the right. So though it says +5, if the first number is a negative, really what we need to do is 9 minus 5 to get 4, and then we'll have a negative sign in front of it because 5 is less than 9. Use a ruler to draw 2 more lines to make an isosceles triangle. So remember, an isosceles triangle is a triangle where two lines are the same length and two angles are the same size. So we could draw lines here and here, because that way this line here and this line here are the same length, and this angle here and this angle here are the same size. And also notice, with isosceles triangles, we get a line of symmetry down the middle. But there are other possible solutions for this question. We could draw our isosceles triangle like this. So that way, this line and this line, so the lines that we've drawn are the same length, and this angle here and this angle here are the same size. Or we could draw our triangle like this. That way, we have this line here and this line here being the same length, and this angle here and this angle here being the same size, and again you can see that we have our line of symmetry down the middle. Ben has a rectangle A and a square B. Ben puts B directly on top of A. What is the length of X? So we need to find this length here. We know that the total length will be 12, so the same as the length of shape A, because B is placed directly on top of A. We also know that the length of B is 5 centimeters, because we have 5 centimeters shown here. So really, to find the length of X, we have 5 plus X equals 12. 12 minus 5 is 7, so 5 plus 7 is 12, which means that the length of X is 7 centimeters. Put a tick on the diagram if exactly 1/2 of it is shaded. So if we look at this diagram here, we can see that we have 4½ squares that are shaded and 4½ that are white. So because we have the same number of shaded squares and white squares, we know that half of this shape must be shaded. Now for this shape here, we have 5 shaded squares, but only 4 white squares. So this shape is not half shaded, because we have more shaded squares than white squares, so more than half of this shape is shaded. Now here we have 3 squares shaded, and then we've also got 3 half squares shaded. Remember, 2 halves make 1 whole, so these 2 triangles or half squares make 1 whole square. So that means there are 4½ shaded squares, because we can count 1, 2, 3. We can put these together to make 4, and then we have another half. We also have 4½ white squares, because we can count 1, 2, 3, put these 2 together to make 4, and then here's our extra half. So again, we have the same number of shaded and white squares, so we can say that half of this diagram is shaded as well. Now here, we have 4 shaded squares. We have 1 here, these 2 can make another one, these 2 half squares can make another one, and these 2 half squares can make another one as well. So that's 4 shaded altogether. But we have 5 white squares. So because we have more white squares than shaded squares, we know that less than half of this diagram will be shaded. And here we have 4 shaded squares, because we have 1, 2, 3, and then our 2 halves make an extra one, but we have 5 white squares. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 2 halves, which make an extra one. So we know, because we have more white squares than shaded squares, that less than half of this diagram here will be shaded. In a supermarket storeroom, there are 7 boxes of tomato soup, 5 boxes of pea soup, and 4 boxes of chicken soup. There are 24 tins in every box. How many tins of soup are there altogether? So, because they've told us how many tins are in one box and we have many boxes, we know that we need to use multiplication to find our answer. Now we could work out 24 times 7 plus 24 times 5 plus 24 times 4, and that would tell us how many tins there were altogether. Or what we could do is work out that 7 plus 5 plus 4 is 16, and then we can multiply 16 by 24. We can use column multiplication to work that out, and that gives us our answer 384 tins. Calculate the size of angle X in the diagram. So we can see that angle X is on a straight line, and the other angle we have is 63. Now angles on a straight line always add up to 180 degrees, just as angles in a right angle are 90 degrees and angles in a whole turn are 360. So really we have 63 plus something, and we need to make 180. So what we can do is work out 180 minus 63, and we might need to use column subtraction for that, but when we do that, we'll get the answer 117. So angle X is 117 degrees, and that makes sense because we can clearly see that angle X is an obtuse angle, so will be larger than 90 degrees. Put these temperatures in order, starting with the lowest. So we have 21 degrees, minus 13, minus 24, 0, and 35. Now we know that a negative number will always be lower than a positive number. So our lowest temperature is minus 24, then minus 13. Minus 24 is lower than minus 13, because if we were to imagine a number line, from 0 we would go back 13 to get to minus 13, but we would have to go back 24, so go back by more to get to minus 24. Then we have 0, 21 degrees, and then our largest or highest temperature is 35 degrees. Circle all the prime factors of 30. Now remember, a factor of a number means that we can divide without getting a remainder. So a factor of a number, a factor of 30, means that 30 is in that number's times table. We also have the word prime here, so we also need to remember that a prime number is a number not in any times tables except for its own times table and the 1 times table. So 2 is a prime number because its only factors are 1 and 2 is a factor of 30 because we can divide 30 by 2 to get 15, so to get a whole number. 2 times 15 is 30, so 2 is a factor of 30. Now 3 will also be a prime factor of 30. It's a factor of 30 because 3 times 10 is 30, so we can multiply it by a whole number to get 30. And 3 is a prime number because it's not in any times tables except, of course, for the 1 times table and the 3 times table. 5 is a prime factor as well. It's a factor because 5 times 6 is 30, or 30 divided by 5 is 6, so a whole number. And 5 is a prime number because it's only in the 1 and 5, not in any other times tables. Now 6 is a factor of 30 because 6 times 5 is 30. But 6 is not a prime factor because 6 is not a prime number. It's not only in the 1 times table and the 6 times table, but it's also in the 2 and 3 times tables. So we can't circle 6, and we can't circle 10. It's a factor of 30 because 10 times 3 is 30, so we can multiply it by a whole number to get 30, But 10 is not a prime factor, again because it's not a prime number. The factors of 10 are not just 1 and 10, but also 10 is in the 2 and the 5 times tables. Now we can work out the prime factors of any number by drawing a factor tree. So we can have 30 at the top of our tree, and then we can have 15 and 2, because 15 times 2 is 30. 2 will be the end of a branch, because that's a prime number. We can't break that down any further. But for 15, we can break that down into 5 times 3. So now on the end of our factor tree, we have 2, 3 and 5. So we know that they must be the prime factors of 30. 2 times 3 times 5 is 30. Or we could draw a different factor tree. Instead of 15 and 2, we could use 10 and 3. 3 is a prime number, so we can't break that down any further, but 10 is 2 times 5. So again, we end up with prime numbers on the end of our branches, and again, we have 2 times 3 times 5. So they are the prime factors of 30.